Okay, welcome to IELTS Speaking 7.5, Lesson 11, Part 3 Advanced Answers. So let's get straight into it. So with a quick recap of the approach and advice I mentioned earlier about Part 3. Language, of course, is important. Ideas about the world are important. And discourse knowledge is important. But how do we do it? It's easy to say this, but what do these things mean? And how do we do it? Well, language, obviously, improving your English language ability, and it's not really about complex language. Advanced English is about using lexical chunks naturally and flexibly, idiomatic expressions that native speakers really use, mainly about natural sounding common collocations, and language that can be developed a lot by reading contemporary news and opinion articles. That's quite important. Discourse, you could say, is the art of conversation, responding in a logical way with your own thoughts in a natural manner, linking your ideas logically, managing discourse markers and fillers in a more native manner, a more native way, and not rushing your speech, speaking clearly without being hurried. Punctuation and speech rate improve pronunciation and speech rate, and pacing and pausing improve fluency. So listen to online discussions and conversations between native speakers, and listen to me today, and where I'm pausing, the words I'm stressing, the rhythm of my sentences. I'm not rushing most of the time, but because of where I put the emphasis on the pauses, I sound quite natural. So, ideas about the world. As I said earlier, take interest in issues at home and abroad and overseas and globally. Read about the world. Nothing too deep. If you like sports, read about sporting news. Read also about what's happening in the world. Key discussions, debates, topic of controversy, of interest, of opinion, local issues that face your country, your city, your social group, your friends, your area of society. What are people worried about? Read about these issues. Think about them, reflect on them, develop some ideas and more mature opinion. So, Part 3. Remember, Part 3 is based on the topic of Part 2. A broader version maybe. It's a discussion with the examiner. It's about wider social issues, not your personal life, although it involves your opinions, giving and supporting opinions. So, after Part 2, question about a family object. You'll remember in the previous lesson the topic was a family object, an old object in the family. So Part 3, the examiner might ask questions about memories and family occasions, family history, the importance of family history in general, not your family, but families in general, the importance of history in general, or taking care of family members. So it could be any of these branches from the topic of Part 2. So you've got to be prepared to be flexible. So in this lesson, these type of Part 3 questions we're going to be talking about. In this lesson, we're going to be covering the topics of memories and family history and looking after the elderly. And we're going to be talking about the discussion techniques of talking about importance and priority and agreeing and disagreeing. Okay, so Part 3. The examiner says, now we've been talking about an object, an old object in your family. I'd like to ask you one or two more general questions about this. First, let's discuss memories and family history. So then the examiner goes into the start of Part 3. Memories and family history. How important is it that we keep objects to remember our family's past? That's my answer. I think it's incredibly important that people keep mementos in their family. Firstly, family plays a significant role in our upbringing, and we should recognize and remember what family members have done to help us get where we are today. Secondly, I think it is meaningful to have sentimental and happy memories to carry with us through life. Keeping photo albums can help us keep those nostalgic memories alive. Above all, I think it's necessary for children to understand the value of family so that they can continue to promote positive values to their families in the future. Heirlooms can be an excellent way to remember people and special occasions we have shared. Whoa, that's a bit difficult. Okay, let's break that down. Expressing importance and priority. So, in discussing importance and priority, follow these steps. Say how important it is. List at least 2 reasons why it's important. State what positive results will come from valuing its importance, or what people should do. Let's take a look. Degrees of importance, positive expressions. I think it's incredibly important that people keep mementos in their family. Mementos are objects which are symbolic of people and occasions. They basically give people memories, help people keep memories alive. I think it's incredibly important that people keep mementos in their family. I think it's very, considerably, especially important that. So adverb modifying the adjective. It's essential that. It's vital that. So these expressions are really good for talking about importance. Express the degree of importance. It makes you sound very native. Plus people plus verb. So I think it's important that people promote good family values. I think it's considerably important that people promote good family values. I think it's essential that people promote good family values. I think it's vital that people promote good family values. See? I think it's important that plus people plus verb. Okay. That's a good structure. Learn it, practice it. Negative expressions. We use these ways to express negative expressions. It is essentially important that. It's especially important that. It's completely unimportant that. It's totally unimportant that people keep sentimental objects. So it's especially unimportant that people keep sentimental objects. It's completely unimportant. It's totally unimportant that people keep sentimental objects, in my opinion. Now, you wouldn't normally say this in this context, but it's good to remember the difference between things like especially important, positive, and it's completely unimportant, totally unimportant. Because you might believe that some things are totally unimportant. Okay, useful phrases. I don't think it's that important that people are sentimental about the past. I don't think it's that important. That's the same as so important. I don't think it's that important that people are sentimental about the past. I think it's particularly important that children learn about their grandparents' past. I believe it is essential that young people understand their family history. I think it's absolutely unnecessary that children are taught to be nostalgic and sentimental. So these are good phrases, actually. Again, I'm going to read them again. Try and memorize them. Think about when you would use them, and think about my pronunciation, my pace, and my pausing. I don't think it's that important that people are sentimental about the past, to be honest. I think it's particularly important that children learn about their grandparents' past. I believe that it's essential that young people understand their family history. I think it's absolutely unnecessary that children are taught to be nostalgic and sentimental. Okay. What are your reasons? You've made a statement. Support it. Back it up. Support your reasons with examples or evidence. I don't think it's that important that people are sentimental about the past, because it's important to live in the present and work towards the future. You might say this. It's a good sentence. I don't think it's that important that people are sentimental about the past, because dwelling on the past will hold us back and not help us move forward in life. I don't necessarily believe this, but you might. Or I might do in one mood, I might do in the test, and it's great English. So make a note of these. Memorize these phrases. It presents a sophisticated and different opinion. Not all families are happy, remember. Now, in many years as an examiner, you would imagine that all students here, all their families are absolutely loving and caring and happy. But I know that's not true, because it's not true in life. Some families are not that positive, or they're not always that positive. It's an exam. Say it. Demonstrate different English. Get a higher score. Don't be scared to make a frank negative point. As long as you make it in the correct way, you will show that you can manage quite sophisticated levels of English and discourse. Frankly, not everyone wants to remember their families. They might not have very happy memories. Not all families have a positive past. Sometimes it's best not to hold on to memories, but to move forward. Not to hold on to memories, but to move forward. I prefer not to think about my family history. I like to look to the future and move on in life. These are great sentences. They may not apply to you, but they might do, and they're very good high-scoring phrases. Right, so 3 clear reasons in my answer are sequenced. Again, you've learnt this many times, but I would like to emphasize it. I will read the whole thing, and I will emphasize the words in italic purple and the underlined words, because these are my 3 reasons in my answer, and they're sequenced. I think it's incredibly important that people keep mementos in their family. Firstly, family plays a significant role in our upbringing, and we should recognize and remember what families have done to help us get where we are today. Secondly, I think it's meaningful to have sentimental and happy memories to carry with us through life. Keeping photo albums can help us keep those nostalgic memories alive. Above all, I think it's necessary for children to understand the value of family so they can promote positive values to their families in the future. Heirlooms can be an excellent way to remember people and special occasions we have shared. Wow, that's a really good answer. Honestly, that's an IELTS 9 fantastic answer on so many levels. But anyway, let's focus. Instead of me getting too enthusiastic, let's focus on the sequencing there. Firstly, secondly, above all. Nice ways to introduce our reasons in an answer which gives and supports reasons and examples very, very well. Reasons why something's important. So notice how I introduce each reason with a simple sequence marker to show confidence and to show my logical thought to the examiner. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, or firstly, secondly, finally, firstly, secondly, thirdly, above all, in conclusion. Simple, but used in that way, very high scoring. Don't forget to use these sequencing words correctly, especially if you're listing a series of reasons to and examples to support an opinion. So, reasons why something is important. Firstly, family plays a significant role in our upbringing. Great collocation, remember it, a significant role. Secondly, I think it is meaningful to have sentimental and happy memories to carry with us through life. A great phrase. You can learn the whole phrase. I think it is meaningful to have sentimental and happy memories to carry with us through life. Excellent awareness of native speaker high-level style, but not complicated, just very colloquial. Above all, I think it's necessary for children to understand the value of family. Again, all of these phrases I suggest you memorize, but you memorize them and learn to fit them into your contexts, your answers, and then they will become quite natural to you, especially if you say them in the way I'm saying them. with the stress and the emphasis and the pacing that I'm employing. Right, advanced native speaker expressions, structures. These are great ones to learn as well. Different to the ones before, but very useful. Without person's support, I wouldn't be where I am today. Very native speaker expression. Without my father's support, I wouldn't be where I am today. Without my teacher's help, I wouldn't be where I am today. Without her kindness, we wouldn't be where we are today. Without my grandparents' dedication and care, my sister and I wouldn't be where we are today. Look, bam, 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 bam. Memorize these patterns, these structures. Use them. You can use these to describe people. After a description of a person, these say how they were valuable to you. You can use these, as I've said many times. The stuff I'm teaching you can be flexibly used in many parts of the test, so don't just get locked in to the one question that I begin the lesson with. Think about how you can use them in other parts of the test. So advanced expressions, continued structures. Another great one to learn is it's important to have something to carry us through life. It's important to have self-confidence to carry us through life. It's vital to have determination to carry us through life. It's important to have memories of our family to carry us through life. It's essential to keep strong connections with our family. These feelings can help to carry us through life. Again, 4 expressions, almost the same, varied. Adapt them to yourself, train yourself, memorize them, use them in context flexibly. Positive results, results of valuing the importance of something. Firstly, family plays a significant role in our upbringing, and so we should recognize and remember that family members have done to help us, what family members have done to help us get where we are today. Statement, and we should, plus verb. So we should, and so we should, plus verb. So, secondly, I think it's meaningful to have sentimental and happy memories to carry with us through life. Keeping photograph albums, keeping photo albums can help us keep these nostalgic memories alive. Statement plus, keeping, can plus verb, help us remember our past. Help us learn from our past, enable us to reflect on the past and make future decisions. Positive results continued. Above all, I think it's necessary for children to understand the value of family, so they can promote positive values to their families in the future. Statement plus so someone can. So, you make your statement your opinion, and then you say, so a person can. So they can teach positive values themselves in the future. So we can all try to improve the society we live in. So they can attempt to raise their own families responsibly. So I think it's necessary for children to understand the value of family so they can teach positive values themselves in the future. So we can all try to improve the society we live in, so they can help to raise their own families responsibly. Statement of opinion plus so people can. Again, you won't grasp this until you start writing your own sentences with these models and practicing and training. But these are great high-scoring phrases that a native speaker would use. Positive results continued. Heirlooms can be an excellent way to remember people and special occasions we have shared. So it's a short, powerful remark to round off your phrase. Something can be an excellent way to, plus verb, plus result. So looking at old photos can be an excellent way to remember our ancestors. Taking good care of ornaments and family objects can be an excellent way to pass down memories through generations. Can be an excellent way to. Activity can be an excellent way to. Activity can be an excellent way to. Okay, good phrase, great phrase. Okay, so part 3, open discussion activity. Another question, looking after the elderly. Do you agree or disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes instead of in the family home? Agree or disagree question. Let's approach this differently this time. I want you to think about this for a few minutes. I want you to pause the video here and make some notes about your thoughts about this question. Do you agree or disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes? Write your ideas in this table. Make a table like this on paper in front of you and write your own ideas. Agree, disagree. What are the points? If you agree, what are the points? Actually, fill in both. Pretend you agree and write down all your agreement points. Pretend you disagree and write down your disagreement points. So there's obviously sides, pro and against. Write down these different points here, then pause the video again. So, do you agree or disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes instead of in the family home? Now look at my model answer. I completely disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes. Whilst I can understand why some people think this might be the best thing for them, because they are likely to receive more professional medical care in a residential home, I strongly believe that when people get old, their families should at least try their best to take care of them. I think that putting our parents into a home when they're old should be a last resort. We should only do it if we're not in a position to look after them ourselves. Introducing agreement and disagreement. I completely disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes. I totally agree that. I'm in complete agreement that. I partially agree that. I can agree to some extent, but. See how we can add adverbs as well to sort of describe the extent to which we agree. We totally agree. I'm in complete agreement. I partially agree. I can agree to some extent. This again will get you higher scores. Using the passive to agree and disagree. The passive again here comes in. To agree or not agree that someone should plus passive. I totally agree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes. I completely disagree that children should be allowed to wear what they like in school. I partially agree that students should be able to choose their own subjects in university. Think carefully. I told you in previous lessons how we would use the passive and why, so I won't go into too much detail, but look at these phrases and think how you can model examples of those to fit many answers suiting your answers to questions. Why use the passive? Quick recap though. The passive is useful for introductory phrases in which in which the person who results from the action rather than does it is the important factor. So when we talk about laws, obligations, or things people are allowed or not allowed or obliged to do in society, we often use the passive. We already know from the content who is making the law or doing the main action, so the receiver is the important person. So that's the rule again. I'm expressing it slightly differently to in previous lessons. This is actually perhaps a more succinct explanation because I think you already understand how it's used, but I'd like you to remember that. So laws, obligations and permissions. Introductory phrases. Children should not be allowed to have crazy hairstyles. Young girls should be prevented from wearing makeup. Teenagers shouldn't be permitted to drink alcohol. Young people should not be encouraged to smoke. Dog owners should be fined for not picking up their dog's mess in public. Car owners should be punished for parking on the sidewalks. These are not my opinions, they're just examples of things that people might say. using the passive with laws, obligations and permissions. Very, very good examples again. You might want to copy these, use them for models. Similar active obligation phrases. I agree that children should be more responsible. I disagree that grandparents should do housework. I believe strongly that we should look after older people. I partially agree that students should choose their own study subjects in university. I totally disagree that kids should stay up late at night. So fill in the gaps here. Okay, this is an exercise. I'm going to read these, then I'd like you to pause the video, complete the activity. So fill in the gaps, then say which is active or passive. So, the words from, to, play, take, be. So we have 2 prepositions and 3 verbs. And we have 5 sentences with gaps. People really should responsibility for caring for their own elderly parents. Students should not allowed to wear expensive designer fashion labels to school. Factories should be prohibited polluting the air. Everyone should their role in looking after nature. People should be encouraged save water. Okay, pause this, do the activity, and then let's continue. Okay, here are the answers. People really should take responsibility for caring for their own elderly parents. So this is the collocation, to take responsibility. Students should not be allowed to wear expensive designer fashion labels to school. To be allowed, should be allowed, passive. Factories should be prohibited from, to be prohibited from doing something. Everyone should play their role. Nice collocation, to play a role, to play your role. They should play their role in looking after nature. People should be encouraged to save water. This kind of activity is simple, but it's a good example of the kind of things you should highlight or underline. Verb plus the correct noun, plus the correct preposition, plus the correct following verb. Take responsibility for, caring for. Take responsibility for, caring for. You know, each of caring is followed by for. Take responsibility for is followed by verb ing. Underline these, remember them, get them right. These will get higher scores. If you get them wrong, the score won't get much more than a 6. So, do you agree or disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes instead of in the family home? So, what do I say? Whilst I can understand why some people think this might be the best for them, because they're likely to receive more professional medical care in a residential home, I strongly believe that when people get old, their families should at least try their best to take care of them. Whoa, that's a long sentence. And it's difficult to say without the pausings really well placed. I wouldn't recommend you try a sentence quite like this, but if you feel confident, then why not practice it? Showing understanding of another view is quite important. Advanced students show they can see other people's opinions, not just their own. Whilst I can understand why some people think this, and then you give the reasons, I strongly believe that. So it's a long, long sentence, but you can also use the same structure to make a much shorter sentence. Whilst I can understand why people think this, I strongly believe that, plus your opinion. Let's break it down. Essential aspects. The 3 essential aspects here. Whilst I can understand why some people think this might be the best thing for them, for elderly people, because they're likely to receive more professional medical care in a residential home, I strongly believe that when people get old, their families should at least try their best to take care of them. So we've got understanding another view, plus that view, then your opinion. 3 steps. Saying you understand the other view. 2, saying what that other view is in a nutshell. 3, saying your opinion. So practice this formula, the 3 aspects. Understanding the other view, plus that view, plus your opinion. Whilst I can see why some people think children get too much homework because they're often working till very late at night, I can also understand why, in this competitive society, they need to study so hard. Listen to my pausing and grouping when I speak. Whilst I can understand why some people think children get too much homework because they're often working till very late at night, I can also understand why, in this competitive society, they need to study so hard. Practice the formula. Understanding another view, plus that view, plus your opinion, or the other view. Whilst I can see why some people think children get too much homework, because they're often working till very late at night, I can also understand why, in this competitive society, they need to study so hard. So, in this case, it's understanding another view, plus that view, then another view. But we're using the same structure. So let's try it with a different content. Whilst I can see why some people think social media should be free and uncensored, because who can we trust to make decisions about what is right or wrong? I can also see why, given its impact on society today, we need to control what people say online. Now, this is a sophisticated opinion, because you're not 100% agreeing or disagreeing. You're actually saying that you can see both sides. Again, that not only shows you're a more intelligent person, but it actually demonstrates a higher level of English language to express that. Do you agree or disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes instead of in the family home? Let's round off this statement. I think that putting our parents into a home when they are old should be a last resort. We should only do it when we are not in a position to look after ourselves. Rounding off final statement. Lexis for almost any context as a last resort. Again, after expressing you understand another view, explaining why, but giving your opinion, you can use this handy expression. It should be a last resort. We should only do it if we're not in a position to. So something should be a last resort. We should only do this. We should only do it if we're not in a position to. So you think about the different, I'll let you go with this. Think about the different ways you can use these 2 phrases to talk about other things that you might do which are not ideal, but you might do as a last resort. Let's talk about an if and when structure here. Putting our elderly in homes should be a last resort if we do not have any other options. The death penalty should be a last resort when we are totally sure the person is guilty of a terrible crime. We should only cram at the last minute as a last resort if we haven't had a chance to study properly before. So I've given you a few ideas here. Remember, cram is very English to express the idea of studying everything the night before an exam in a mad rush. We should only cram at the last minute as a last resort if we haven't had the chance to study properly before. So, pronunciation review. These are the most effective ways to improve pronunciation, and I know I keep saying this, but I want you to remember this, so I've got to repeat myself. Pausing. Where do you pause? Little pauses, longer pauses, even longer pauses. Grouping of words is dictated by where we pause, usually by meaning. Sentence stress. Which words do I stress in the phrases I say? Vowel sounds. Speak the vowel sounds clearly and correctly. End consonant sounds. Sounds. Say the end consonants of the words, then they won't all get lost in a kind of soup of a mess. So pace of speech, slow down a bit and get these things right. Only speed up when you've got these things right. But don't speed up too much. Keep your pace clear and rhythmic. Right, let me read this one more time and you listen out for these pronunciation features. I completely disagree that elderly people should be looked after in care homes. Whilst I can understand why some people think this might be the best thing for them, because they're likely to receive more professional medical care in a residential home, I strongly believe that when people get old, their families should at least try their best to take care of them. I think that putting our parents into a home when they're old should be a last resort. We should only do it if we're not in a position to look after them ourselves. Okay, review the lesson. Go back and study all that we've done. Play the video again, pause it, stop it. Review the lesson. Write example sentences of your own using all the structures. Note down new collocations and phrases. There are quite a few good ones in this lesson. Incorporate them into your answers, your own answers. Write lots and lots of examples and read them aloud. That's the way to train yourself. Task. Answer these questions yourself using what we've studied. Do you agree that school children should be allowed to wear what they want to school? Do you believe that children should be allowed to have mobile phones? Some people think that students should decide their major for themselves and not take their parents' possibly outdated advice. Do you agree or disagree? Thank you very much. That's another lesson. I'll see you in the next lesson.